bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name is Todd, David Goldfinger, and here's today's top stories. Thanks for being with us. U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is expected to appear at a hearing Friday in Atlanta in a challenge filed by voters who say she shouldn't be allowed to seek re-election because she helped facilitate the attack on the Capitol building that disrupted certification of Joe Biden's presidential victory. The challenge filed last month says the Republican Congresswoman is ineligible to run under a provision of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, alleging that she aided and engaged in an insurrection to obstruct the peaceful transfer of power on January 6th, 2021. Marjorie Greene, has repeatedly denied aiding or engaging in an insurrection and has filed a lawsuit alleging that the law the voters are using to challenge her eligibility is itself unconstitutional. She is set to appear on the Republican ballot for Georgia's May 24th primary and has been endorsed by the former President Donald J. Trump. Next news. Stymied in their calls for a renewed investigation into the killing of Emmett Till, relatives and activists are advocating another possible path toward accountability in Mississippi. They want authorities to launch a kidnapping prosecution against the woman who set off the lynching by accusing the Black Chicago teen of improper advances in 1955. Carolyn Bryant Donham was named nearly 67 years ago in a warrant that accused her in Till's abduction, even before his mangled body was found in a river, FBI records show. Yet she was never arrested or brought to trial in a case that shocked the world for its brutality. Authorities at the time said the woman had 2 young children and they did not want to bother her. Donham's then husband and another man were acquitted of murder. Make no mistake, relatives of Till still prefer a murder prosecution, but there is no evidence that the kidnapping warrant was ever dismissed, so it could be used to arrest Donham and finally get her before a criminal court, said Jerebu Hill, an attorney working with the Till family. Next news. Mourners gathered Friday at the funeral for Patrick Lyoya, a black man who was fatally shot in the back of the head after a traffic stop and struggle with a white police officer in Michigan. Civil rights leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton, will deliver the eulogy at the family's request. Their lawyer, prominent civil rights, this pop-up here. Civil rights leader, oh my goodness, this pop-up. Civil rights leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton, will deliver the eulogy at the family's request. Their lawyer, prominent civil rights attorney, Ben Crump, also will speak at Renaissance Church of God in Christ in Grand Rapids. Loyola's funeral marks the most recent time that Sharpton and Crump have joined with mourners to speak at the funeral of a black person killed by police. Sharpton's eulogies have included those for George Floyd, whose death in Minneapolis sparked a national reckoning on race. Daunte Wright, who was shot during a traffic stop in suburban Minneapolis, Andre Hill, who was killed in Columbus, Ohio, and Andrew Brown, who was killed in North Carolina. Next news. From algae farming to producing a sort of artificial limestone, ideas for reducing greenhouse gas in the atmosphere are getting a funding boost from famed entrepreneur Elon Musk. The Tesla electric vehicle and SpaceX rocket company developer is bankrolling a $100 million X-Prize carbon removal competition for the most promising ways to reduce atmospheric carbon dioxide by grabbing the gas right out of the air. The 15 early phase, in quotes, milestone round winners were announced Friday, and each will get $1 million, a welcome boost for the teams to carry on with and scale up their work. In quotes, what we've said is you haven't given us $1 million. What you've done is catalyze investment in this technology, end quotes, said Mike Kelland, CEO of Planetary Technologies, a milestone winner that seeks to increase the ocean's ability to absorb carbon dioxide by controlling the rising acidity of seawater. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you so much.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name's Todd David Goldfinger, and here's a continuation of today's top stories. Thanks for being with us. Thank you. President Joe Biden has an election year message for frustrated voters. At least he's trying. For those who think he's not doing enough to help Ukraine fend off the Russian invasion, Biden announced $800 million in new military support on Thursday. To ease the pain of high gas prices, he's tapped the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and reopened onshore sales of oil and natural gas leases on public land. And to address historic inflation, Biden has tried to smooth out supply chain crimping bottlenecks at the nation's ports. The president hopes the moves, which are being announced in nearly daily rollouts and in a stepped-up travel schedule, will present a contrast with Republicans, who, he argues, spend more time complaining about problems than actually proposing any real solutions. Next news. President Joe Biden is taking steps to restore national forests that have been devastated by wildfires, drought, and blight, using an Earth Day visit to Seattle to sign an executive order protecting some of the nation's largest and oldest trees. Old-growth trees are key buffers against climate change and provide crucial carbon sinks that absorb significant amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. Biden's order directs federal land managers to define and inventory mature and old-growth forests nationwide within a year. The order requires the Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and the National Park Service to identify threats to older trees, such as wildfire and climate change, and develop policies to safeguard them. The order does not ban logging of mature or old-growth trees, the White House said. By signing the order on Friday, Biden can publicly reassert his environmentalist credentials at a time when his administration has been preoccupied by high oil and gasoline prices following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Gas costs have been a drag on Biden's popularity and created short-term political pressures going into this year's midterm elections. Yet, the Democratic president has been focused on wildfires that are intensifying because of climate change. Next news. A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers is calling on the Biden administration to establish field hospitals near Ukraine's border and ramp up medical support for what's expected to be a months-long war of attrition waged by Russia. Forces aligned with Ukraine have suffered thousands of casualties since Russia invaded on February 24th, 2022. And Russian strikes on hospitals and other non-military targets have killed large numbers of civilians and strained Ukraine's ability to care for sick and wounded people. The Associated Press has documented 36 Russian attacks on medical facilities, hitting medics, patients, and even newborns. More than a dozen House members wrote Friday to Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, asking for the U.S. to fill gaps in Ukraine's medical infrastructure. The steps recommended by the group include opening field hospitals in eastern Poland, providing Ukraine with armored ambulances, and taking some of the sick and wounded to the U.S. military's Landstuhl Regional Hospital in Westdeutschland, in western Germany. Next news. Former President Donald J. Trump's persistent flirtation with another White House run is doing little to discourage other potential Republican candidates from stepping up their activity in Iowa, the state that will formally launch the 2024 nomination process. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo quietly finished his 5th trip to Iowa last week And former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is making plans for a statewide trip this summer. Former Vice President Mike Pence, meanwhile, is expected to visit the heart of conservative Western Iowa this weekend. Pence's trip is particularly notable since he spent the better part of 4 years in lockstep with Trump. It provides further evidence that Pence, whose life was threatened by Trump supporters during the violent January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, is considering his political future without regard to the former president's plans. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you for being with us. Mounds of dirt seen in satellite imagery that Ukrainian officials say indicate new mass graves highlighted the savagery of a war that showed no signs of abating Friday, as Russia pounded targets in eastern Ukraine in a new offensive to take the country's industrial heartland. Cities in the Donbass came under Russian fire overnight, and the attacks interfered with attempts to evacuate civilians in one area, according to a regional official. The region, home to coal mines, metal plants, and heavy equipment factories, is bracing for what could be a decisive campaign as Russian President Vladimir Putin attempts to salvage an 8-week-old war, already widely seen as a blunder and a humanitarian disaster. On Thursday, the Russian leader claimed victory in the battle for Mariupol, even though an estimated 2,000 Ukrainians remained holed up in a giant steel mill in the strategic city. Putin ordered his troops not to storm the stronghold, but to seal it off, in an apparent bid to free up troops for the broader campaign in the east. Next news. As France elects a president, Paris-based artist Vincent Aitsegar is going to ground, escaping to a bucolic village to avoid what for him and millions of other left-wing French voters is a painful, even if impossible, electoral choice. For the first time in his life, the 65-year-old has decided to not vote at all in a decisive ballot this Sunday. "I'm fleeing," he says, "because it stinks." Disgruntled voters like Aitsegar, who favored candidates who were knocked out in the election's first round on April 10th, are the wild cards in the winner-takes-all runoff. How they vote or don't vote on Sunday will in large part determine whether incumbent Emmanuel Macron gets a second 5-year term or cedes the presidential Élysée Palace to far-right nationalist Marine Le Pen. A seemingly unlikely but not impossible outcome that would be seismic for France and Europe at large as they deal with the fallout of Russia's war in Ukraine. Next news. Israeli police in full riot gear stormed a sensitive Jerusalem holy site sacred to Jews and Muslims on Friday after Palestinian youths hurled stones at a gate where they were stationed. The renewed violence at the site, which is sacred to Jews and Muslims, came despite Israel temporarily halting Jewish visits, which are seen by the Palestinians as a provocation. Medics said more than 24 Palestinians were wounded before the clashes subsided hours later. Tens of thousands of Muslims took part in the main Friday prayers at midday, which were held as planned. Palestinians and Israeli police have regularly clashed at the site over the last week at a time of heightened tensions following a string of deadly attacks inside Israel and arrest raids in the occupied West Bank. 3 rockets have been fired into Israel from the Gaza Strip, which is controlled by the Islamic militant group Hamas. Not Hamas. Next news. The United Nations Human Rights Office on Friday pointed to what it said is growing evidence of war crimes since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, declaring that humanitarian law appears to have been tossed aside. Michelle Bachelet, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, said that, in quotes, "Our work to date has detailed a horror story of violations perpetrated against civilians." Period. End quote. Her office's mission in Ukraine so far has verified 5,264 civilian casualties, including 2,345 deaths since the war began on February 24th, 2022. It said that 92.3% of those were recorded in Ukrainian government-controlled territory. The office uses strict methodology and has long acknowledged that its confirmed figures are far short of the real numbers. In quotes, the actual numbers are going to be much higher, end quotes, as more details emerge from places such as Mariupol, where there is intense fighting, Bachelet said. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here is the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. A UK patient with a severely weakened immune system had COVID-19 for almost a year and a half, scientists reported, underscoring the importance of protecting vulnerable people from the coronavirus. There's no way to know for sure whether it was the longest lasting COVID-19 infection because not everyone gets tested, especially on a regular basis like this case. But at 505 days, it certainly seems to be the longest reported infection, end quotes, said Dr. Luke Blagden Snell, an infectious disease expert at the Guy's and St. Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust. Snell's team plans to present several persistent COVID-19 cases at an Portugal this weekend. Their study investigated which mutations arise and whether variants evolve in people with super long infections. It involved 9 patients who tested positive for the virus for at least 8 weeks. All had weakened immune systems for organ transplants, HIV, cancer, or treatment for other illnesses. None were identified for privacy reasons. Next news. Boston urged people to start wearing masks Thursday, and the Biden administration weighed its next legal step in what is shaping up to be a high-stakes court fight over the abrupt end of the national mask mandate on airplanes and mass transit. The Public Health Commission noted a rise in hospitalizations as well as a 65% increase in cases and an even larger spike in COVID-19 levels in local wastewater samples. It also stressed that the guidance was merely a recommendation, not an order. The country is wrestling with how to deal with the next phase of the pandemic and find the right balance in enacting health measures at a time when many Americans are ready to move on. After 2 exhausting years, a federal judge in Florida this week threw out a national mask mandate on mass transportation, and airlines and airports responded swiftly Monday by repealing their requirements that passengers wear face coverings. That put the Biden administration in the position of trying to navigate an appeal that could have sweeping ramifications over the power that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has in regulating future health emergencies. Next news. Scientists say last summer was the hottest summer on record in Europe, with temperatures a full 1 degree Celsius, that's 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, higher than the average for the previous 3 decades. As a report released Friday by the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service found that while spring 2021 was cooler than average, the summer months were marked by, in quotes, severe and long-lasting, unprecedented 48.8 Celsius, which is 119.8 Fahrenheit, measured in Sicily last August. The prolonged high temperatures contributed to wildfires, such as those seen in Siberia, Greece, and Turkey last year. And experts say it increased the likelihood of heavy rainfall of the kind that led to deadly flooding in Belgium and Germany last July, more likely. Next news. American Express's first quarter profits fell roughly 6% from a year earlier, but the company saw a 30% jump in spending on its namesake cards in the quarter as its card members returned to their habits of shopping, traveling, and dining. The New York-based company posted a profit of $2.1 billion US dollars, or 2.73 a share, down from 2.24 billion US dollars, or 2.74 US dollars a share, a year earlier. Last year's results had a one-time boost to Amex's results, as the company released some of its reserves that it had set aside to cover potential losses earlier in the pandemic. Travel and entertainment companies have been saying for months that U.S. consumers are eager to get back to traveling after the 2-year coronavirus pandemic, and gauging from American Express results, this appears to be true. Card members spent 350 billion US dollars on their American Express cards in the quarter, up 30% from a year earlier. The average Amex American Express card holder spent nearly 6,000 US dollars on their accounts last quarter, up 27% from a year earlier. This has been the daily global news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Todd. Log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites, please. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. That's News Channel M24. Viewers now on both network broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Also, smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment, our latest news, views, editorials, our current events, our Millennium TV apps, Millennium TV USA Android, Millennium News Google. Check out the Millennium Foundation USA. And also www.millenniumnews24.com. Please stay with Millennium News 24/7. Thank you, and God bless you all. God bless us all. Thank you.